All right, what I want to talk to you about today is how you can create for yourself a 2 week vacation paid for by your portfolio every year for the next, say, 20 to 30 years. Would you like to do that? So, I want to talk to y'all about something I call baby step fi. Now, the FI community is a very powerful thing, and I love it. Figuring out your FI number is such an empowering thing to do, and it allows you to then focus on that goal of achieving that FI number. The problem is even that phi number, which is such an important thing to have because it gives you something you can shoot for. By the way, if you don't know what a phi number or what the 4% rule is, click on that video right there. Your phi number is such a powerful thing because it gives you something to shoot for, but it's still a very big number. So, what baby steps phi allows you to do is to, as you're going after this larger phi number, it allows you to enjoy the process. So, the first thing you have to do is to figure out your phi number. Now, your phi number is going to be based on your what you need to make to cover your expenses in retirement or in not retirement, what financial independence. So let's give an example. My expenses right now, because we have our house paid off, are about $29,000 per year. If you like this video so far, subscribe and hit the bell for notifications. It helps us reach a larger audience with these helpful videos. Let's get back into it. Okay, pretty low, right? So in order to reach my phi number on a 4% draw, I'm going to take 29,000 and I'm going to multiply it by 25. If I do that, I'm on my calculator right now. 29,000 times 25, that equals $725,000. Okay, so that would be my phi number, working off a 4% draw. However, if I was a little less conservative and wanted to use a 5% draw, I could multiply 29,000 times 20, and that would give me $580,000. That's the number that I'm going to work with, okay? More conservative approach. Some people like to use 3.5%. Certainly 4% is the most popular, but I use, for my life, a 5% draw because there is a, a lot of research that will show you that even a 5% draw, if your money's in the S&P 500 making 8 to 10% on average, you'll be safe with a 5% draw. So we have a big number, 580,000. That's a manageable number, but it's still a big number if you're starting at zero, which is kind of where I'm at right now. Now our house is paid off and we have a Roth IRA, but just started a personal brokerage account pretty much at zero. I think I have a couple $100 in there right now, okay? And I want to slowly build that through baby step phi to that 500,000 number. But through baby step phi, I can enjoy the process and I can shoot for smaller numbers. So using that $580,000 number, which again, for you, it could be totally different. It's based on what your expenses would need to be covered in your retirement. So if I take that 580,000 and I divide it by 12, it comes out to about $48,000, $48,333. So that means the $580,000 number will cover an entire year at a 5% draw of my portfolio. But divide that by 12 and I get a monthly or a 1 month, what my portfolio based on a 5% draw would cover for 1 month. And that equals $48,000. Well, that's a lot more manageable than 580,000, right? If I have $29,000 expenses and I want and if I'm able to make say 70,000, then that would or say $69,000 a year, that would give me $40,000 of savings every year. Well, in order to reach 580,000, it would take over 10 years to do that. But 48,000, I could do that in a little over a year. Now, what would that do? That would provide for me 1 month out of my year that my portfolio, based on a 5% draw, would cover my expenses. 1 month. And of course, the title of this video is for 2 weeks. So if we divide that by two, comes to about $24,000. So for only $24,000, my portfolio, if I can save up $24,000 and invest it in, the S&P 500 or something else. This is not financial advice, by the way. This is just what I do. But if I can invest it in something that's producing, say, 8 to 10%, and I'm drawing 5%, then that amount, 24,000, is going to give me 2 weeks, okay, of those expenses, which if my annual expenses are 29,000, that would make my monthly expenses about $2,400, which would make my weekly expenses about $600, which would make a 2 week expense about $1,200. So that means that 24,000 on a 5% draw is covering $1,200, which is what I would need for a 2 week paid vacation, but not just once. That $24,000 will continue to give me 2 weeks of paid vacation every year for, say, the next, I don't know, 20 or 30 years, or perhaps even indefinitely. Now, as I add more to that 24,000, as I get up to 48,000, it's going to, of course, provide me with more than 2 weeks. At $48,333, I will be able to have 1 month covered. And you might say, well, what about 2 months? 2 months would be 48,000. In my case, with the $29,000 expense per year, it would be 48,000 times two, which would be 96,000. I would be able to cover 2 of my months. Now, here's the interesting thing with baby step 5. Most people, I assume, would not want to travel more than 2 months a year. Like, think about your ideal situation, your ideal scenario. Um, let's say this. If I travel 4 times a year, that would mean every 3 months I'm traveling somewhere. That's pretty cool, right? If I travel 4 times a year and each one of those times I take 2 weeks, right? That would equal about 2 months. 2 weeks, 4 times, 2, 4, 6, 8 would be 8 weeks, which would be about 2 months of vacation. Most people, I know there's some people out there that travel all the time, and that still wouldn't be enough for them. But I would say there's other people that are just homebodies and they want to stay home. But I would say the vast majority of people, at least in my opinion, I don't have any stats to back this up, but I would assume the vast majority of people, if they were able to set up their ideal schedule, would not travel more than about 2 months per year. That's in an ideal schedule. If you had ultimate money, if your expenses were covered and you could do whatever you want to do, I mean, I could be wrong, but I don't think people would travel more than most people would travel more than 2 months a year, maybe 2, 3 months. But so what I'm saying is the point of this is, as you are going about the baby steps FI, when you reach about 2 months, which in my case at $29,000 annual expenses would be about $96,000, so say $100,000. If I can reach $100,000, I cover 2 months. My portfolio will cover 2 months of every year for basically the next 20 or 30 years. So imagine that you're saving up, right? You're saving up to be financially independent. You're saving up for retirement. For you're trying to get to 580,000 or 700,000 or a million or 2 million, whatever it is. But you basically get to a point eventually where 2 months of every year it's covered by your expenses. So when you get to like 1 month, when you get to like 2 months, you're getting to enjoy retirement before you get to retirement. You get that? You are getting financial independence 1 month of it. You could get 2 weeks of it. When you reach $24,000, if you're in my case and you have $29,000 expenses, when you reach $24,000, you have 2 weeks of financial independence. 2 weeks of every year is paid for by your portfolio. When you get to $48,000, if you're in my shoes, 1 month of every year is going to be covered by your portfolio. Now, some of you are going to say, well, yeah, but now you're drawing money out. And so you are not allowing your money to grow. That is true, but it's the trade off that you're making. So I still have a Roth IRA that I'm not touching, that's growing and stuff. And, you can have other accounts, you can have a 401k, but I specifically have a personal brokerage account that I want to live off the dividends from. I'm not gonna, I am gonna draw money from that. I am not going to let it grow and, double every 7 or 8 years at a 10% interest rate. I'm specifically setting up this personal brokerage account to begin to live off the dividends, even if it's just a week per year or 2 weeks per year, or as I'm going along, a month per year. Because I want to begin to experience that and not have to, put my head in the ground for 10 years until I can experience it. I want to begin to experience it along the way. So that is something called Baby Steps FI. And I think it is a very empowering way to go about pursuing FI. Okay, because along the way, you are experiencing it. Now, again, that's my opinion. Some of you out there are going to have a different opinion. They'll say, well, you're stealing from your basket. Instead, just let it grow and just knuckle down for 10 years. And you can totally do that if you want to do that. But for me, I want to begin to experience FI after 1 or 2 years. And I'm still adding every year to it. I'm still working. Say if I get up to 1 month a year, if I get $48,000 and now my portfolio covers 1 month of my year, I'm still working 11 months of the year. Or if I get up to 2 months per year, I'm still working 10 months of the year and continuing to add to that number to get up there. But I'm beginning to experience FI. See, there's a certain amount of enjoyment, there's a certain amount of vacation that is really desired, and then there's a certain amount of vacation that is not desirable. Okay, so like there's a certain amount in your day. You got say you sleep 8 hours out of a 24-hour day, you got 16 hours left, right? Did I do the math? Okay. um let's say you would really love to have 2 to 4 hours a day of just doing nothing, right? Or just doing whatever you want to do, creative, playing, playing guitar, learning a new language, 2 to 4 hours a day to sit in a hot tub and do whatever you want to do and go out on the hammock and just stare at the clouds, right? That's pretty cool, 2 to 4 hours a day, but 16 hours a day, it would get pretty boring pretty quick, right? And so in the same way, if if you're able to, while you're going after this FI, which eventually will cover your entire year's expenses, if you eventually get to a point where 1 month or 2 months of every year covers your expenses, your portfolio does, you're going to be a lot happier person while you're pursuing this eventual FI that will cover your annual basis of expenses. So that is called Baby Steps FI. That is something that you could get to within, like I said, a year, 2 years. I mean, if it's 24,000, if you're just looking for 2 weeks, you could get that 6 months to a year. You could save up $24,000 and you can start experiencing 2 week vacations every year. And if you can get to 48,000, that's a month, at least in my case where my expenses are 29,000. But you can figure the same thing out for your expenses. If your expenses are 50,000, then you take 50,000 and multiply it by 25 and you got 1.25 million, and then divide that by 12, and that's what you can go for in order to try to reach 1 month of your expenses being covered. So while you're going after the big dog of your FI number, you can be experiencing 1 month, 2 weeks, or 1 month or 2 months of vacation every year. I think it's really the way to go after FI. But that's for my case. Again, others of you, it may not work for. Let me know in the comments if this strikes a chord with you, or if you have any pushback, you can let me know in the comments as well. And we will see you in the next video. Subscribe, hit the bell for notifications. It helps us reach a larger audience with these videos. Thanks so much. God bless.